March 20th, 1904. In the small town of Susquehanna, Pennsylvania, little Burrus Frederick came into the world. His father was a lawyer, mom was a homemaker. Burrus had a younger brother and described his childhood as warm and stable. Burrus enjoyed inventing and building things. When he was 18, his younger brother died. This event cemented his decision to become an atheist. Growing up, his grandmother helped form this decision by teaching him the dark side of religion, giving fiery sermons on hell and the devil. These events pushed him firmly into the atheist camp. When he attended Hamilton College as a young man, his views were not well received by his peers. After an unsuccessful attempt at becoming a novelist, he went back to college and earned his PhD in psychology from Harvard. Not too shabby. Burrus went on to write books and became very influential in the world of behavior and psychology. He even invented the air crib, which was supposed to make child rearing easier and more rewarding. It would help the child become more confident, happy, and secure. The air crib never caught on, maybe because it looks like a dog crate for kids. Anyway, Burrus also invented a box, which eventually took his name. Some of you may be more familiar with the name B.F. Skinner. Skinner is regarded as the father of operant conditioning, but his work was based on Edward Thorndike's 1898 law of effect. According to this principle, behavior that is followed by pleasant consequences is likely to be repeated, and behavior followed by unpleasant consequences is less likely to be repeated. BF dies in 1990, but his work still influences dog training today. For good or bad, I'll let you decide. You may not know this, but he may be the root cause of why you're having behavior problems with your dog. So by this point in the video, you're probably thinking, what's this all have to do with B.F. Skinner? And it has a lot to do with him. I'm going to prove it in just a minute, because one of the biggest problems with dog training today is confusion. You're on YouTube watching this video probably, and you've probably hopped around and watched a bunch of trainers today or some other time, and what you find quickly is that there's a lot of conflicting information. This dog trainer says this dog trainer says that, this dog trainer says that guy's wrong, that one says this one's wrong, and it just goes on and on and on. And then you're sitting there going, geez, what the heck do I do with my dog? So what I always like to do is not to say this is the way you should do it. What I always like to do is show you why you should do it a certain way. And in order to train your dog, it's not just a matter of teaching them sit, right, or come when called. Really what it's when it comes down to is understanding how dog behavior works. You need to understand how behavior works. And this is where people get a little intimidated and they think, oh my gosh, I'm no expert. I don't have a PhD in behavior. Behavior is very easy to understand. Very easy to understand. All you have to understand when it comes to dog behavior is your dog does two behaviors. That's all your dog does, is two behaviors. I know you're sitting watching this video thinking, this guy's lost his mind. My dog does all kinds of behaviors. My dog jumps, he chews, he barks, he bites, he digs, he steals. That's way more than two behaviors. But I need you to follow me for just one more second and let me prove to you that your dog does two behaviors. And the reason I can say that is because I'm going to show you this little high-tech graphic to show you why your dog does two behaviors. Okay? Your dog is either doing a good behavior that you like and want, or your dog's doing a bad behavior that you don't like and don't want. And again, before all you behaviors lose your minds, I know it's acceptable and unacceptable. I know this is being anthropomorphic, but for our purposes, let's just call it good and bad. Okay? So, your dog is either doing a good behavior that you like and want, or your dog is doing a bad behavior you don't like and don't want. And really, this is all dog training is. There's two parts to dog training. There's two parts. The first part, what behaviors do I want my dog to do? Oh, let's see. I want my dog to come when called. I want my dog to sit, to lie down, to drop it, go to place, right? I can list all those good behaviors on this side. That's the first part of dog training. The second part of dog training is, what behaviors do I want my dog to stop doing? Okay, I want my dog to stop jumping, stop barking. I want him to stop stealing food off the counters and stop digging up my backyard. I want him to stop chewing on my fence, right? So, two parts. Do these behaviors. Sit, lie down, come and call. Stop doing these behaviors. Jump and chew and bark and bite. Okay? You could follow your dog around all day and you could list the behaviors. Oh, he just sat on command. Good behavior. Oh, he's on the counters. Bad behaviors. Oh, he just came to me when I called him. Oh, he just knocked the trash can over and ate the old eggshells that were left in there. Okay? Bad behaviors. So this is what I always say, because you treat these behaviors a certain way and you treat these behaviors a certain way. So obviously we want the dogs to do these behaviors whenever we ask for them. So how do you get a dog to do a behavior? How do you get a person to do a behavior? Very simple. You need to use reinforcement. Reinforcement increases behaviors. So whenever I want the dog to sit, to lie down, to come on call, to walk on leash, I'm going to use and apply reinforcement. All the time. Every time. Okay? Same thing for you. What do you go to work for every week? You go to work because you get a paycheck. And that paycheck is a form of reinforcement. So reinforcement increases behaviors. Now, how do we stop a behavior? This is where it gets interesting. You need to use punishment. Punishment weakens and eliminates behaviors. And this is where people start to lose their mind, because the word punishment has been vilified, and we think of the word punishment as a bad thing. Punishment's abuse, punishment violent, right? Punishment is information. That's all it is. It's not good or bad. It's information. And it's often information that keeps your dog safe. And the problem with dog training today, the problem with behavior today, is that this is a subject that we can't talk about, because as soon as it's talked about, people lose their minds. And the thing is, if you want your dog to stop jumping or chewing or barking or biting or doing anything like that, you need to know and how to apply punishment. And it does not mean that you have to inflict pain on the dog. Because again, everybody immediately starts thinking, oh, this guy's going to shock my dog. This guy's going to put a prong collar on my dog. Nope. You can apply punishment pain-free. Okay? You can. I'm sharing this with you because if you're struggling with your dog, you may feel like giving up. You've probably watched videos, paid for training, read books, and you still have behavior problems with your dog. I'm telling you up front, you'll never solve dog problems with cookies and treats. As good as that sounds, as much as we like to, you have to think about using a combination of reinforcement and punishment if you want a well-trained dog. Remember, your dog does two behaviors, good and bad, acceptable and unacceptable. Reinforcement increases behavior, punishment eliminates behaviors. When a dog trainer refuses to discuss punishment, they will tell you all the reasons why you should never use punishment. They will scare you. They'll tell you all the reasons punishment will ruin your dog. They will come up with multi-step protocols with fancy names. They will hand you a stack of papers. It'll have a 43-step protocol with a fancy name that you have to follow. Common ways of dealing with behavior problems with the anti-punishment crowd is to redirect the behavior. They'll tell you to ignore the behavior. They'll tell you to counter-condition the behavior. They'll tell you that you need to use desensitization. Most of it won't work because when you need to stop a behavior, you must use punishment. If you're uncomfortable with the word punishment, it's because you've been convinced it's a bad thing. Punishment's not good or bad. Reinforcement's not good or bad. And that's important to remember. There's nothing bad about punishment. There's nothing great about reinforcement. Sure, reinforcement will increase a behavior, but it's also important to stop behaviors. If you have a dog that likes to chew on the couch, that's frustrating. A dog that chews on an electrical wire, that's dangerous. The way to stop the dog from chewing on the electrical wire is to punish, which turns out to be a good thing. The problem with the behavior experts today is they've convinced us that punishment is bad. Punishment is what keeps your dog safe. A dog that steals food or eats socks or leaves the yard is in danger. Punishment can solve all of these problems. Not to mention, if your dog does eat a sock, it'll cost thousands of dollars to operate on the dog to get the sock out. The dog will also be in painful recovery for weeks. Would you rather take a split second of punishment or weeks of painful recovery? You're starting to see why avoiding the use of punishment is actually detrimental for your dog. You're starting to see why we need to stop vilifying punishment. We need to start using it to keep dogs safe. Imagine a kid just receiving positive reinforcement. What would that kid be like? Exactly. Pretty spoiled. Reinforcement in the absence of punishment causes big problems. Punishment with no reinforcement also causes problems. Because we have an emotional connection with dogs, we don't want anything unpleasant to happen to them. This is why the subject of punishment has become a problem. Emotional thinking has gotten in the way of logical thinking. The effort to confuse you on the subject of punishment has deep roots. Where did it all begin? You guessed it, B.F. Skinner. Skinner did not like punishment. He let his personal feelings affect his thinking. This article right here shows you his views on punishment. Because his influence, there is now a huge anti-punishment movement worldwide. On the surface, this may sound like a good idea, but again, reinforcement in the absence of punishment leads to major problems. Since the 1990s, the anti-punishment movement has taken off. The movement has spread to many leading institutions. The confusion over the subject has the so-called experts pushing the anti-punishment agenda. Look at the popular magazine Psychology Today. The print version has a circulation of 250,000 people. They have 7.5 million followers on Facebook, 900,000 Twitter followers, more than 600,000 Instagram followers, and 700,000 people follow them on LinkedIn. They have a huge presence. Psychology Today has a major anti-punishment slant. Every article on punishment is negative. This brings me to an important question. If your child was being bullied, how do you want the situation handled? If you were assaulted, would you want the person reinforced or punished? In many school systems today, punishment is not allowed. Where I live, the teachers who work in the surrounding cities are instructed to only use positive reinforcement. There's no punishment allowed. You can't give it detention, you can't take the child's cell phone away, or any other type of punishment. The problem with punishment is viewed as a bad thing. Remember, punishment and reinforcement are not good or bad. They have different functions, and to have an effect on behavior, you need to know how and when to apply either one. Publications like Psychology Today view punishment as the devil. Psychology Today has a Canine Corner, written by Stanley Coren. You may think I'm exaggerating, but here's some examples. Here's an example from one of their writers, Michael Carlson, PhD, JD. Punishment doesn't work. Punishment doesn't change the tendency to engage in punished behavior. Here's my question. Have you ever seen a dog on an underground containment system, also known as invisible fence? There are thousands of dogs in your neighborhood safely in their yards because of invisible fence or an underground containment system. How does that work? Punishment. So for a magazine like Psychology Today to write an article clearly stating punishment doesn't work is going to add to the confusion. Here's another article. This one's by Paul C. Hollinger, MD. The problem with physical punishment. An overview of physical punishment. Again, more confusion. Now, the next one. This one's by Stanley Coren, PhD, DSc, FRSC. A punished dog is an aggressive dog. Physically punishing a dog for misbehaviors is apt to make it more aggressive. Again, this is their common fallback. You use punishment, you're going to develop an aggressive dog. Not true. What leads to aggression is abuse. And there is a huge difference between abuse and punishment. To try to link punishment to violence, it's unethical on the part of anyone saying it. Because again, punishment is what keeps the dog safe, and it's not abuse and it's not violent. Here's another one by Stanley Coren. Is punishment an effective way to change the dog's behavior? And then he goes on to say, use of punishment during dog training leads to increased aggression. The absence of punishment is where I've seen a lot of aggressive dogs. A lot of dogs that are stressed out, anxious, jumping on their owners, cannot handle different situations because they've had treats thrown at them for every single thing that happens. This last article I'm showing you is interesting. The article is a typical example of confusing the subject. In the article, Mr. Coren is talking to a friend about his puppy. The puppy is chewing on shoes. When the friend's wife catches the puppy chewing on the shoe, she yells at the puppy and calls him bad dog. Mr. Coren tells his friend that he doubts this will change the behavior. He then states, when you catch the dog engaging in an inappropriate chewing, simply make a trade. Take the object away from him and give him something more desirable and acceptable to chew. Now, this sounds like good to most people. This is the advice most people will get if you go on YouTube or you search on the internet. If you catch your dog chewing on something, here you go, give them something that they can chew on. But I want you to step back and I want you to think about this for a moment. If you catch your dog chewing on the shoe or the carpet or the corner of the coffee table, and you give them something like a Kong toy or a squeak toy, think about what you have just done. If your dog is chewing on the shoe and you give your dog a Kong toy stuffed with peanut butter, you have just rewarded your dog for chewing. Now the behavior gets worse. You get more confused. You get frustrated. I'm doing what they told me to do. My dog continues to chew. And actually the behavior gets worse because you're rewarding and reinforcing the dog for chewing. If this continues, the dog may get injured by swallowing parts of the shoe, or the dog might get rehomed. All of which could have been solved in minutes with properly applied punishment. It gets worse. The anti-punishment movement has exploded. In 1993, Dr. Ian Dunbar started the Association of Pet Dog Trainers, now called the Association of Professional Dog Trainers. APDT boasts 5,000 members. In 2012, the Pet Professional Guild was founded. This is a force-free organization also with thousands of members. At this point, I want to say, you never have to use punishment with your dog. It's your dog. If you don't want to, you don't have to. If you want your dog to stop biting you, if you want your dog to stop chewing, jumping, begging, excessive barking, you really need to think about using punishment. And the purpose of this video is to tell you that it's okay. The time has come for us to have an open conversation on the subject. The problem is the all-positive, force-free, anti-punishment dog trainers are not interested in discussion. When the subject of punishment comes up, they are only interested in one thing: punishing the people who discuss punishment. Let me end this with a quick story. Years ago, I had a guy come into my office almost in tears. His wife had died the year before. He always wanted a golden retriever and got a puppy 6 months before. As he came into my office, almost in tears, he told me that he thought he'd have to get rid of his dog. When I asked him why, he said because his dog jumps on him. I didn't think that was such a big deal when he said it to me. Then he rolled up his sleeves and showed me his arms. It looked like he had been in a knife fight. He explained that he was on a blood thinner. When his dog jumps on him, he bleeds, sometimes resulting in hospital visits because he couldn't stop the bleeding. He added that he had been to 3 different trainers. They told him to ignore the behavior, to turn away, to redirect, to keep him on a leash. That's when I showed him a simple technique to stop the behavior of jumping in just a few minutes using punishment. Now, that poor dog would have been rehomed. The guy would have been heartbroken, and it only took a few minutes to fix the behavior problem because we used punishment. We just end by saying, do I think B.F. Skinner destroyed dog training? No. But I do think his beliefs have influenced dog training today. He let his personal feelings get in the way of reality. If you want to approach dog training behavior, you have to be based in reality. When you let your personal feelings get in the way, you go into denial. The dog training industry has thousands of dog trainers living in denial, which is fine until an unsuspecting dog owner comes to them and learns their false beliefs. Dog training is simple. Your dog is doing a behavior that you like and want, which requires reinforcement, or your dog is doing a behavior that you don't like and don't want, which requires punishment, because it's a behavior you want to stop. Instead, you are told punishment does not work. It has devastating side effects. It'll ruin the bond between you and your dog. It'll lead to aggression. The dog will become anxious. The solution you are given is a big, complicated counter-conditioning, desensitization protocol that won't work. Dog training today is one big, complicated, and confusing mess. And the one who pays for it is the dog.